Hey everybody, it's Adam. Adam and Cradleberry. The white trash liberal, the B-E-R-R-Y, oh my. The blue-eyed Bama bandit. The mother-humping B-E-R-R-Y, and you still don't know me. The double-wide on a dirt road Democrat. How y'all doing? Welcome to 2022. Let's see what this clusterfuck of a dumpster fire has in store for us. You know, I love when people say they wish it was 1776. You know, you see that from the Patriots all the time. It's in their username or they have shirts or hats that say it. You know, hell, Lauren Boebert tweeted it on January 6th. I mean, Madison Cawthorn recently tweeted that the Founding Fathers will be ashamed of how this country is now. And you know what? Hell must have frozen over because I agree with Madison Cawthorn. I mean, the Founding Fathers will be like, why in the fuck are the slaves free? They'd be freaking out that they were unmarried mothers with jobs who weren't widows. They will be dismayed at our hard-ons for weapons. They will be scared to death of technology and automobiles. I find it somewhat hilarious when people use their smartphone to yearn for 1776. It's the hypocrisy for me. In 1776, life expectancy was 54 for men and 56 for women. Now, if you tell a 54-year-old man he's old, he'll challenge you to a foot race or a boxing match. If you're telling a story and you're like, oh yeah, this older fella about 60, you'll have all the pawpaws coming after you. Now, I know back then, there were people who did live past that. Thomas Jefferson died at 82. I think John Adams was 90. But those were very prominent citizens who had the best care of everything. I'm talking about the average American citizen like me or you, are the ones who are yearning for 1776. And what about a woman? That's what floors me when women say they wish it was 1776. Why? So you won't have a voice? So just speak when spoken to? So you have to be a housewife, a mother, a doctor, a gardener, everything? I mean, women didn't even have the right to vote until the 20th century. And now we have women today yearning for 150 years before that. I guess so they can be an earthly vessel for a dozen births, and hopefully half of those will live. Did you know that back then, if you traveled on horseback, you would average about 50 miles a day? And if you traveled by stagecoach, it was like 36 to 40 miles a day. What the... I mean, New York to Philadelphia is what, like 90 miles, 90-something miles? It'd take, what, hour and a half? 2 hours at the most to get there? Back then it'd take 2 days. Can you imagine getting in your Honda to go from New York to Philadelphia and it taking 2 days? You'd be mad as hell. And hell, New York to Boston's what, 215 miles, something like that? 4 hours now? Like a week back then? That's why I don't get. People love using the advancements of today to yearn for when we didn't have that shit. Look, I've actually got it right here. I've got a box of letters from that are correspondence between my great-grandparents back when they were just courting. They're anywhere, this one's from 1912. They're anywhere from 1910 to 1912. And it's amazing seeing how people talked back then and how just sweet it was. And how it's kind of the same shit. In one letter, my great-grandmother's talking about some girl she didn't like, or they had a disagreement or something, and in it she says that the girl can just go where it don't snow. I'm guessing that's 1911 speak for go to hell. But the one that pertains to this is there's one where my great-grandfather's talking about he really hopes that next Sunday after church he'll be able to see my great-grandmother. He'll be able to see his honey bunny. But he doesn't know if he'll have time after church to go all the way see her, spend time with her, and get back before nightfall. It was less than 20 miles. It was probably close to 10 miles. And that was in the 20th century. But y'all want it to be 1776, huh? And what about medical care? You know, what would a doctor do for you back then? Now, we got people now saying don't trust doctors. What would, if you had access to a doctor? If it wasn't mama taking care of you? If it was mama, you better hope this rosemary and sage out of the garden would clear you up. A doctor probably tell them to do that too. And if that don't work, here, stick these leeches on you. Or if that don't work, here, take this razor blade and bleed out. Let's just let you get the bad blood out of you. Y'all want y'all want to impress the founding fathers so bad. Meanwhile, George Washington literally died because he was sick with a fever. And the doctor cut him and let him bleed so much that he lost too much blood and fucking died. But that's the time y'all want, huh? And what about bathrooms? What were bathrooms like back then? Huh? Did you have the personal oasis that we have now? No, you had a fucking chamber pot that you had to pee in or poop in when you couldn't go outside. And then you had to empty that every damn day. I bet everything just stunk. Or if you did have a water closet, then it just went down to a cesspool. And then somebody came and got the shit out of the cesspool and hauled it off and dumped it in the river. Or you dumped it in the river yourself. Or if you were in like a city where there was some kind of sewer, where did the sewage go? To the fucking river. Which then you would get sick. And then they would take leeches, probably from the river, to try to make you better. And if that don't work, you can always cut yourself and bleed it out. But when people bitch and yearn for 1776 and say we should be living just like the Constitution and the Founding Fathers intended, which is funny because the Constitution wasn't written until, what, the late 1780s? But there's two things that pop in my mind. One, they say we should be nothing. The Constitution is solid. Nothing should be changed, which just proves that they don't know what a fucking amendment is. I mean, the Founding Fathers changed it. They knew that the Constitution is a living document. They knew that times changed, and with it, the Constitution might need to be changed or amended. I mean, shit, they took Prohibition out after they put it in. That's why I don't get it when people scream about 2A. Motherfucker, it's an amendment. That's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. But the one that really gets me when they say we should be living just like the Founding Fathers intended is the 3/5 clause. The 3/5 clause or the 3/5 compromise, if you don't know, it was an agreement made in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention that said that 3/5 of a state slave population will count toward just total population for representation and taxes. Now, not representation of them people. Just it gives the people who, because you got to remember, those weren't people. They were livestock. They were property. That'd be like today counting a farmer's cows and saying 3/5 of these can count towards representation in Congress. What the actual fuck? I mean, our founding documents literally say that black people should not be included as people. So they should count as 3/5, but only for taxing. Only for representation in Congress for their owner. And now we have people today who want it to be like that, who want it to be like it was back then. Now, 250 years later, we have people who say they wish life was exactly like that. They say that in their heated and cooled home with indoor plumbing, on their smartphone, with vehicles and internet and television and medicines cabinets stocked with Tylenol and NyQuil and Dayquil and Robitussin and not rosemary and sage. They say that now 2.5 centuries later, in a country with 50 states and a population of over 330 million, that we need to base our decisions on a piece of paper that was signed by 39 out of 55 delegates from 13 states with a population of a little over 2 million. Which those delegates just happened to be, it must have been a coincidence, they just happened to be prominent landowning white men. And those white men decided that women didn't have a voice in things, that Native Americans were savages, that black people were property. But you could count 3/5 of them for taxes. That's the life and country that these people yearn for. That is their USA. Well, it's not mine. Alright, guys. Thank y'all. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, all that. Love y'all, and always remember, if you're gonna do something, do better.